Welcome to Making a Tour, leveraging the tour module for a better user experience. I'm Dwayne. The slides for this and everything else I pretty much have ever talked about are out on my website, mcdwayne.com, which is a little WordPress site, and it serves that need of having pages and posts and absolutely no users whatsoever very, very well, which is a really good use case for a WordPress site. Outside of tech, I love crochet. I've been crocheting a lot of things like those little octopuses you see in the corner. You'll see those pop up on Twitter and whatnot. And speaking of Twitter, that's my favorite medium. It's an event-specific social media platform that if we take it outside of context of immediate event-specific, it gets weird. But yeah, if you look up the hashtags like Bad Camp or any other event that you're interested in, there are two WordCamps today going on, WordCamp Long Beach and WordCamp Philly. And you can go see what they're doing. Just look at the hashtag. That's my favorite way to use Twitter. So if you want to take a picture in the dark or just tweet out that you were here, that would be awesome. I don't know if we'll get into karaoke tonight, if any of us have left in us to go party, but yes, always down to talk about karaoke and webcomics and whatnot. All right, so, I took out my slide that talked about Process Digital Consulting. So I run a little consultancy, Process Digital Consulting, and I help people figure out process and figure out how to go from, I think I know what I want to do, to here's the story of how we get there, and then map back the tactics of how we communicate as a team to better put processes in place to scale and grow. We're doing that inside of other jobs I've been doing for a while, and happy to help you talk about that. Anyway, so that's me. Just curious to who all came in the room today. Too many people, I think, to do one-by-one intros, but just a quick show of hands, or I guess applaud. Applaud would be better for the recording. Who here considers himself a full-time developer, and that's what they consider their role? The applause, people, like you can't hear it on the... There's about 6 people. Who considers himself a full-time designer? Yay! Does anybody consider themselves a UX specialist? User experience specialist? Yeah, awesome. Same as design, awesome. Anybody a content creator? Or participate inside of any kind of an editorial workflow? Yeah, okay, so we got. And does anyone deal with clients and have to train them on their websites? Yep. That is who I think we'll get the most use out of this. Though developers might be the quickest ones to adopt it. It's really, what I'm talking about is tours. It's really for people that have to explain things repeatedly to people about their Drupal 8 sites. But before we talk about the tour module, I want to talk to you really quickly about my trip to Thailand, since I have your captive attention. This is the second largest reclining Buddha in the world, and this is the tour guide and there was no one else on the tour, so me and her just hung out for a couple of days. And she took me to this train side market where she bought me a coconut. And this is a Buddha on the Green Lung, which is a jungle in the middle of the river in Bangkok. It's just this natural, they left it a jungle, except for like a few temples and whatnot, and a couple parks. But if you throw a coin in the middle of the Buddha's belly, your wish comes true. And that's the tour guide that got me there. She was awesome. We did a bicycle tour. I got a flat at one point. She rode my bike with the flat. Yeah, I tipped her well. And this is from the King's Pagoda, overlooking the Queen's Pagoda. I'm the Queen's Pagoda looking over the King's Pagoda, where the King and Queen of Thailand go to reflect and talk to Buddha. And that's the dude who took us through the village, got us some fresh coffee, and took us all the way up there and explained everything on the way. This is the Summer Palace. If you ever get to Thailand, go to the Summer Palace. It is gorgeous. It is a mishmash of every culture in the world, because the King of Thailand does whatever he wants, and whoever floats his boat for the last 10 kings has been like, all right, I like that architecture, let's build that. So you can see pieces of Versailles in here, you can see Japanese show gardens. It's a weird mishmash. And that's first. He's the tour guide who took us, and you can't really see it that well, but if you zoomed in, that's a Buddha head that's growing in a Bodhi tree. Because he got knocked off with the statue once and just grew up around it in ruins. Here I'm playing with elephants, and there's the dude who taught us how to drive tuk-tuk so we could get up to those elephants and hang out with them. And here is the admin screen for views, and here's the tour guide who told me how that I could output format in there. So that last one was obviously not timely. But it's the exact same idea. I had a really good time on my trip, once-in-a-lifetime trip to Thailand, because I just went for it and said, all right, I want tour guides for everything. Just show me how to have a good time in Thailand. And I had the best time of any vacation I've ever been on in my life. And inside of Drupal, there's a tool where if we just implement it, we can give every user who ever touches the interface a full tour of how they're going to have the best time using what we built. So why I'm talking about this is I was back at Texas Drupal Camp last year, and Kelly Albright, who's one of my heroes of like agile and just process thinking, was talking about, this is my favorite quote from him of all time, DevOps is not about tools, it's about shortening communication loop. In that same talk, he talked also about how we do that, how do we actually shorten the loop. And he said if we developers could just explain how to use our features as we built them and ask for direct feedback, why wouldn't we do that? And that's when he explained the tour module, and that's the first time I'd ever heard about it in my life. And it blew my mind. And I played with it, and I was like, why isn't everyone not on board with this? Why is every D8 install ever not just loaded up with tours? I mean, it's in core. It's been in core since 8.0. And it's already turned on. That's the thing. It's already enabled. Sitting there waiting for you to feed it stuff. It's built on this thing called Joyride 2, just a jQuery library. The Drupal version only supports text, which we'll get to when we talk the specific how to do this stuff. But Joyride, if you want to roll up your sleeves and extend it out, you can put anything in a tour. Because Joyride will support pretty much anything, video, HTML, anything you want. I think it's always important when we're talking about tooling to step back and say, how did it get there? Who put it there? And remind ourselves that we did it. Now, I personally didn't do it. I just talk about it. I'm a big fanboy. But there's a really, really good blog post on Previous Next blog about how this happened. It's a 2-part blog. It tells the full story of a team needing this tool, pushing for it, getting enough buy-in in the community, and people are like, okay, and we'll just push it into Drupal 8. That's the super short version, and a lot of work has been done and still being done on this. But what a tour looks like is this. Like, you hit a button up in the corner that says tour, and it literally walks you through the site. And you can crawl div by div, ID or class by class, all the way down the page, and just explain what everything is. For the most part, I see it most useful as explaining things, options to hit or fields to fill in. But if it exists, if a tour is loaded on the page that you're looking at, it will appear in the right-hand corner as a little icon by default in the toolbar. I say admin toolbar, but in reality it's just a toolbar. You can enable the toolbar for anonymous users. Just most of the time we don't, because it's a bad UI, or it looks kind of funky. But for logged in users, they probably have a toolbar anyway. It doesn't need to be the admin toolbar, that's kind of a misnomer, but that's what I ended up calling it. So the real terrible news about Tour, of like all the amazing things it can do, is Drupal 8 only includes one out of the box that's already enabled. And it's a good one, don't get me wrong, but if you go to edit views under Drupal 8 install right now, a tour should be there if you're logged in as the admin. And the idea, I think originally was, we will build them out over time. And there are a bunch, like PRs just sitting there, or not PRs, a bunch of patches just sitting there, waiting for approval. The really good news is they are really, really straightforward to write, but they're completely customizable for your audience. So, before we go any further, I can't teach you everything you need to know about tours today. I can introduce you to concepts and point you in the right direction and give you some tools. But the only way to like wrap your head around this for real is to just dig in and just build a few tours, and then it all makes sense. So if you're like grasping with anything like today, like, wow, that YAML seems overwhelming, it is at first. But once you break it down, it actually helped me understand the routing system in Drupal in a way that no other use of anything else I built did. So, say overwhelming, that's all you got to do. If you can build this YAML file, you are good to go. But you don't have to build this YAML file because I literally built this for you. And it's out in a GitHub repo, and you can just mod it for your own uses. And if you're staring at that, you're like, wow, that's a lot of YAML. Don't worry. Again, it's overwhelming at first, but then it's so clean, you'll enjoy doing this, I promise. If you like writing things. If you don't like writing things, you probably hate this. So there are two ways we're going to look at this. First, the hard way, but the manual way that works universally. And then the easy way, but requires a little bit of trust and a tool that's not quite ever had a stable release. But a lot easier to use. So, we're going to use this template that I built, and that's what I'm going to walk through. So if you want to go grab it from my GitHub, feel free, and you can write along with me, or if you just want to hang out and then like fill in the blanks as you go and just take some notes, that's cool too. So the first thing that we have to do is name our file. And in wonderful Drupalese, for some reason we have to say tour.tour, dot the tour ID that we want, dot YAML. And the ID is a unique name for this tour. So it could be add new user or editorial workflow for this team. There's no limit on the characters, it's just a file name. But it should be meaningful for what the tour is actually trying to do, not just the module it's attached to. Because a single module can have a bunch of tours, depending on the UIs that you're trying to explain. So once we've named our tour dot whatever it does dot YAML, then we fill in some blanks. And again, this is all off the template I built, which is based on the actual templates you can find on Drupal.org. So we need an ID, a machine readable name for this tour. If we're using PS255, no, it's the PSR4. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You can do better. Sorry. If we're using,
it still makes PHP look like Java, and I'm just
yeah. If we're following the proper code standards, the ID should match what page we're looking at, because you're only going to put one tour per page. This is a suggestion. There's no hard rule on this. It just needs to be a unique ID. We have to declare what module it actually lines up with. What are we tying this to? Because it is module specific. But you can write a tour for anything that's in core. In core, all of the modules exist in system. So if you're building something for the core system, you just throw a system there. We need a label, human readable. It's up to you. You can write whatever you want in there. Single quotes and go nuts with human readable label. In language, I have not seen any documentation that supports anything but English, but I don't see why it wouldn't. I've never tried though, because I only speak English. That's a limitation. So if anybody can update me on that at some point, please let me know in the future. If you're listening to this on Drupal TV or whatnot. Next up, after we've declared what it is and some human readable language, we got to tell Drupal where it goes. And this is where the routing system kicks in. So who here is familiar with Drupal routing? Routing.yaml. So one of the cool things about Drupal is where all of the paths live per module or per theme live in one place. It's routing.yaml. You can go and look and see exactly what is being invoked when this path is invoked very easily. You can see what controllers are getting invoked. It makes it overall a more comprehensible, like how do all these paths programmatically get set. All we got to do is find the route, the actual, for the path that we want it to be on, and plug this in. A route is not a path. This is not a one-to-one thing. But actually, I'll get back to routing. I have a whole section about like looking that up. And then inside of the tour itself, we have the individual things that it shows are called tips. And we can have as many as we want. We can fill up a page with them. The first one, the introduction, again, this is my template, not official Drupal language, or module-introduction, just floats in space. It's not tied to anything. If you don't have, if this is all you put, like an ID for it, but plugin is text, because that's the only one that was implemented from Joyride. Joyride supports like 6 others that I know of, but in Drupal by default it's text. You can hack it and do it whatever you want, but out of the box it's text. However, that text is also HTML. So you can throw HTML and it works just fine. Links are great. Pictures, embeds, video embeds, it all just works. I think that's one of the reasons they chose text instead of like, let's go down the individual other routes. A label is what it says at the top. That's the title of that box that you see, and the body is, well, the text, rest of that text field. And then you just repeat that ad infinitum. So this is the next thing I'm explaining. But this time, so I have the ID. The ID is specific to the individual tip, which is separate from the ID for the entire YAML file. Again, we always have to declare what plugin we're using for that tip. That's just the way Joyride works. A label for it, a body for it. And then we can have it float out in space. We don't need to give it a location or a weight or an attribute. But now, if we want it to point to something, it's kind of inverted from how I think about it. So we need to tell what attribute it's going to point at. That's the bottom line. It works perfectly with IDs, but how many people use IDs religiously on everything they ever write? Of course not. That's silly. But that's ideal. You can also have it point to classes, and it will just point to the first one it sees, the first instance of that class. And that's more common, I've seen. Weight is what order they appear in. Weight 1 appears first. Weight 2 appears second. Pretty straightforward. And location is where relative to the attribute the actual pop-up is. Left, right, top, or bottom. Or just completely cut it off and it just pops out as a modal in the middle of the screen. And you just do this as many times as you want. So, here's one I wrote, for example, for the add. Just take me around. Let me get to the round real quick. I wrote one for add user. So, or edit user. I say again, we're on this July. No, this is user add, because it does 2 things. What? Oh, yeah, cool. So the idea of this is user edit. The module is for user. The label, user edit. That's my URL name. It's in English. It has 2 routes that I'm invoking: user edit form and user admin create, because those forms are almost identical. So I can reuse this same tour across both of those things. So I just got to feed it both routes to appear on. And then here's the tips that I wrote. And I could see it in this form, or I could jump over to my site. And here's my plus. Up in the corner, because I have a tour loaded in there, there's step 1, there's step 2, and I can see on the second weight, edit attribute, here we go. Attribute, edit current pass. So if I did a spec element on this page, yep, there it is, edit current pass. That's the label I'm pointing at. So routes. Routes are where most people struggle that I've talked to, that I've worked with on this. Because routing is not immediately obvious if you're not familiar with it. So, again, I'm going to talk about the hard way to do it, but always works regardless of what install you're working on. And then the easy way to do it. But it's dependent on depth, which some people don't want to put in or can't put in. So the hard way is we go find inside the module.routing.yaml file, and then just go find the path that matches the screen we're trying to build it for, and then we just take the route. That's the route, that's the path. The path, I can literally copy paste into my URL path, and there I am. That shows up exactly as the Devil admin settings page. But from Drupal's perspective, the actual route is devil.admin_settings. So that's what I plugged in. Again, if you're looking for something in core, it's probably under systems. So just go looking there for your systems.routing. That's a really long file. The good news is Control F works. So yeah, again, just what I said. You find the page at that address, which means you can take the path you want from the URL, Control F inside of your YAML, and it should just show up. The pros is this just works. Like, you have this code base at your disposal all the time, and you can just do this. The bad news is, well, you got to do it manually, and sometimes labels are very confusing. But then enter Devil, which is just a wonderful set of development tools. And one of them they built in is the route finder. You can just look up the Devil routes and search. It's really a filter, not a search. But it filters for what you're looking for and shows you the path and the route name. So you don't have to go looking inside the files. It works. It's way faster, it's cleaner, makes a lot more sense. But it doesn't expose you to what routing actually does. One of the benefits of looking at the routing.yaml files is you see everything else in there. And you see like what is getting invoked when this route gets invoked. And it starts demystifying some of the inner workings of Drupal 8. So I love Drupal 8. I absolutely do. Because part of why I do is the more I dig into the mystery of it, the more it's like, oh, that's just clean code. That just works. And like I showed in my example earlier, we can throw the same tour at two different things. If one of the IDs we're pointing at simply isn't there, it just skips it. It just skips that particular one. So like, back on editing a user here, current password, that exists for editing. But if I was to go back to my people tab and wait for the Wi-Fi to be really slow, and then I add a user, I can also invoke the same tour. So we're creating our editing user, adding our editing user, and then the next one on that last screen, the second step of that 2 of 6 was current email, our current password. New user doesn't have a current password, so we just skip that. It just skips that div entirely. So best practice is in the docs, for some reason, to put this in config optional folder and then only invoke them when you need them, which really threw me off for a little bit when I was first investigating all this. Like, if I'm going to build a tour, why am I making it optional? And I guess for like redistribution reasons, if you're building a module, you don't want to force people to have tours on. I disagree with that fundamentally. If I'm going to go to all the trouble of building a tour for this thing I built, I'm going to leave it on. I'm going to just let you have it, because the whole goal is me to explain what I did and how you should use this UI based on why I built it. But if you're following the exact documentation about releasing your module, you probably put it in a config option folder. Then it says to do all this stuff. Because after we built the YAML file, we have to tell Drupal this YAML file exists. Good news is this isn't a major code change. This is a config change. So we can just use our good old-fashioned, let's go to the CMI inside of Drupal 8 and give it a single YAML file. Just pull down from the list, I'm building a tour, copy-paste that tour in there, and we're done. Now I can move it to the appropriate place and then invoke config synchronize and use Drush to do this, and then technically it is faster if you can type faster, but this just works and it's easy. And I'm all about easy. And after that, import, it works. But wow, that is a lot of manual typing, especially if you're hand filling in a YAML file. And you're not alone thinking that. There's another group of people that said, you know what, that's a really really good idea if we'd have a UI for this. And they built one. It's called Tour UI. It's a module unto itself, and it throws a UI on top of this whole process. But you got to do all this stuff, which, man, when you first read the docs on the Tour UI page, it's like, wow, that's a lot of steps. But if you're coming from the manual side, it's like, oh, they cut out about half the steps. But in all reality, this is all it is. You just enable the module, you go to the Tour interface, Tour UI interface, and then you start filling in fields. That whole import and manage the config step, that happens auto-magically. It's a black box approach a bit, but it's literally just filling in the blank. Anybody on your team can build these. So if you have a super user that is never going to touch code, they're never going to understand what the YAML file probably is. But they understand the editorial workflow that you've set up inside and out. They could explain it to any newbie. They could write this. They could totally write this. You would have to maybe coach them on the routing piece. The fun thing is the Tour UI actually comes with the tours turned on. So it will tell you how to use the thing out of the box. And if you forget, you can just ask it to give you the tour. It's one of the real benefits is, again, you don't have to mess with the config. So your end users, like your super users, could be like, I'm just going to build tours all day to explain to everyone else on my team how we properly do this. And the only thing they'll have to really get their head around is routing, which if you have Devil installed, pretty straightforward. Throw this path in here, and that will magically spit out the thing you put in that box, and that's it. And then it just does it on save. It just imports that config on save. Unfortunately, this project has never had a stable release. So if you're composer requiring and require stable, this breaks. And if you have a requirement that you can't use dev modules on a production site, this breaks. The awesome news is it just spits out config. So you can use it in a sandbox to build your UI, throw that config into a file, throw it in your other site, and it works just beautifully. Because again, Tours is in core. You're not doing anything special. You're just throwing YAML at it. Very importantly, we got to give the right people permission to see it. Out of the box, admins see it. That's it. So you can go in and make sure, A, that your authenticated users have a toolbar. They might not. Probably don't. And 2, admin authenticated users have access to tours. Again, you can turn on both of those things for the anonymous user as well. If you have a specific use case where you just need a new person to show up to the site, and if they get lost, they can hit that button up in the corner. You need that corner to exist. Theoretically, you can redirect where that button appears, but that's a level of hacking beyond what we get into today. And that's it. Like, you can theoretically sit down with someone, explain exactly how your UI works for anything, write down how you explained it, throw that into YAML, and now explain it to every other user that ever touches that UI for the entire rest of time. Removing a tour is a little bit different, though. Here I will say, this is where Drush is going to save you a lot of time. How many people like the GUI for synchronization with CMI? Yeah, I have two iffy hands. It's just slow. Like, I made the mistake once of doing a sync for a brand new site or clone that I gave up after a half hour. Just gave up. Like, all right, I'm just done with this. I did it with Drush, and it was 3 seconds. But I literally don't know if it just got hung up in the process. I timed out somewhere in the back end. I have no idea. Literally 3 seconds. But to Drush, get rid of this stuff, we just Drush config list, see what. If you've never run Drush config list, that's just fun to run on its own. Because you're like, wow, I didn't know all this config even existed. And then you start digging into config a lot better. But then it's Drush config delete, and then the name of the thing that we're trying to do. You can't technically do this through the UI, but again, way faster, easiest path. That's it. It's up to you now. I tried to write. I'm realizing now I did not put this on here. But if you go to my
Start.
Yeah, if you go to this, my GitHub, github.com/mcdwayne/Dwayne's-tours, you will find a robust attempt by myself and Dan Ficker, who is here somewhere at camp, to write a generic library of these. And I realized after writing a handful with Dan that there's a reason, my theoretical reason of why these don't exist globally is it's really hard to write for a global audience how all of this stuff works. Writing for a specific audience, way easier. So we're giving you some jumping off points that, like, how much value does it add to explain how to add user as a tour? I don't know. But the tour UI, first time you go through it, it's like, oh, this just makes sense because it's a new UI for you. You can pass that experience to your users as well. So that's the address. Again, you can get these slides. If you go to mcdwayne.com to get the slides, you'll actually have the link to that GitHub repo in there as well. A lot of great information about this. It's not the most well-documented thing in the world, weirdly enough. But the power of it is just, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's there. It's in Tour. It's in core. It's already on. And with that, I was going to clap along with these guys for the recording. I love how Picard just looks at it. I'm like, what are you doing? But I'm Dwayne. Process Digital Consulting is my business. MC Dwayne on Twitter. I love talking about everything else. And slides are MC Dwayne, like everything else I've ever done. And with that, I will open it up for any questions, conversation around tours. Welcome, Aaron. Back there, so I can first.
I think I have a couple questions. One is, do you know anything about accessibility for like screen readers, at least for those tours?
That's a great question, and it's a jQuery library. So I don't know. That doesn't answer it at all. I don't know. Actually, somebody asked me that last time I gave this talk, now that you say that, and I tried to get my screen reader to work, and it just wouldn't come on.
Okay.
But let's give it another whirl. But while I'm messing with this, is there another question?
Well, I just wanted some clarity. It sounds like you said that you can enable this for anonymous users, which means that if you have non-login users or using public internet,
Yeah.
you can introduce new features, but they have to click that tour button for it.
So the tour button has to be clicked in order to activate the thing. Theoretically, you could write some JavaScript that upon load, it automatically clicks that thing. But again, that's hacking at a certain level. Permissions is what I was looking for. But for permissions, I'm going to look for tour. Here we go. So on this site, anonymous tours can access my tours, and I will give my anonymous user use of the toolbar as well. Let's go save this really quick. And then I will fast forward this. Anonymous. Oh, because I can't see that page. But I should be able to see. I don't have a tour for this front page. I can't manage things. I'm anonymous. All right, so if I built a tour for this front page, it would totally have shown up there.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, screen reader, that's under accessibility.
A possible idea, if you look at the markup for that tool platform, you might be able to replicate that somewhere that is outside of the toolbar, right? So anonymous users, you wouldn't necessarily need to turn on a toolbar, you just need to replicate that markup.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that is a little beyond what I was talking about today. Here we go. Accessibility, voiceover, enable voiceover. It's
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks to...
No, that's not what I wanted to do.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks descriptions of items on the screen and can be used to control the computer using only your keyboard. If you already know how to use VoiceOver, press the V key now. If you want to learn...
So Control F5, right? So let's turn on the tour.
VoiceOver on Chrome. Add user vertical line side install. Google Chrome. Window. Tor. Toggle button has keyboard focus. You are currently on the toggle button. To select or deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space.
So you're on the Tor toggle button.
Oh,
So you gotta move over to the,
so if I hit
Try to tab.
try to tab to the.
Adding or editing a user. This form can be used to edit an existing user or add a new container to your site. Containers are used to group forums together. For example, if you run a group, system preferences, accessibility.
it's not something. It's unfortunately not something I do enough.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It probably works best with the pop-out though, instead of the,
Well, let's turn it back on and find out.
well, I mean, we don't, other people have questions.
Welcome to
Sure,
VoiceOver.
it's fine.
VoiceOver.
All right, so let's go to the next one.
Space with Chrome containing window add user site install. Google Chrome. Full screen space. VoiceOver on Chrome. At login credentials. The email address has to be unique. 2 of 5. Next. Link. Times. Close. Link. Dialog. The status. The status determines if the user is able to log in or not. It's useful in case system preference.
Hey, jQuery people know what they're doing. All right. Other questions? Sorry.
So I played with this a while ago. I haven't taken it back up again. Now you've got me excited about it again.
Yay!
We used
Let us talk.
what's the field group module on the admin side, and the group are things in vertical tabs to clean up the editing forms. And Tor couldn't go into
Yep.
one of the tabs that was closed.
I call that the JD Flynn bug because he's got a production use case that's like literally trying to find a workaround for that right now.
Oh, okay.
And we discussed it at length, and theoretically, there's a JavaScript way to make it auto open that thing when you open the tour, but that is a level I do not understand of JavaScript personally. The workaround that we talked about is crude, but says in the tour itself, click this to make this make sense, or some kind of language around that. Yeah.
Do you mean that when the tabs?
Yeah. If this was vertical tabbed here, and I had to be on
Meaning
this.
that they go down the
Yeah,
page on the left?
it's one page, so the route's the same, and it's JavaScript that's showing. It's hiding those other tabs, so it will still show the modal for the div that is technically there, but it won't visibly be available.
So in other words, so you just need to make sure you're on the first tab?
Yeah, you need to make sure that you're. What's an easy page to show this on? Yeah. No, 'cause that's 3 different things.
There's a more like you need.
Well,
You
like
need
that's
an
sort of
extra
like
mention.
an add to that page, right? Just a basic add page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, there's no good answer.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's the short of it. And if you haven't run into that yet, maybe you won't. Maybe you didn't install vertical tabs.
Would it work if there was just an extra step in the tool that says click on this next tab? So the other divs.
It would still be on the user to click on that next tab because the modal is just floating above. It's not.
Yes.
Again, you could theoretically tie in an on-click event or an on, but then you're on the hook to maintain that. So that's the trade-off. But that's the one edge case that a lot of people are like stuck on. It's like, well, I can't make it do that, so I'm going to give up on it entirely. But like, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater on that one. And there's got to be a way to do it. As far as I know, no one's gone and talked to the jQuery or the Joyride people and say, hey, how do we fix this? As far as I know, no one's done that yet. So, the whole community unto itself. Other last questions? Okay. Time for 2. Sorry.
So any kind of, probably not within the Drupal module, but with the Joyride, is there any ability for interactivity? Because the problem is somebody goes through the tour and they go, okay, what was that 7th step?
Yeah, the good news is you can always just hit it again. It's like, oh, what was the second
and then
step?
they gotta go through it. But is there any kind of contextual interactiveness so that I'm 7 steps to the tutorial or the tour and I don't know what I'm doing to fire it off at that step?
Not that I know of. Yeah, the short answer, I just don't know. I've not run into that. Like if you have like 100 steps, it would be a pain to like go back through 100 steps. I totally hear that. But I think where Tour shines the brightest and the best value for it is a UI you don't use all the time that only has like 10 or less steps. And you're like, what does this field do again? Click, 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 click. That's what it does. Okay, I don't have to go to docs. I don't have to ask anybody. I just had to click the next button like 5 times. So can you make it jump directly to one based on where you're at? I don't know the answer to that. All right, one.
I see this on back-end pages, but can it be used on front-end pages to explain functionality to users?
Yeah, that's what I was showing over on this here. If I had a tour loaded up for my front page, then it would, my anonymous user would show up here.
So you could just say, here's your blog post listing, and here's where you can set the topics you're interested in. You know, like whatever functionality you offer, you can walk them through.
Yeah, any page that has classes or IDs on it, you can make a tour for it. There's no limitation to it. It's just a matter of getting the tour button to show up, and like we were talking earlier, you can take it out of here, just figure out how it's implemented and take it out and put it wherever you want.
Right.
But again, that is on you to maintain, because that's not functionality out of Tour UI out of the box, or Tour API out of the box. And that's mostly what I want people like writing immediately for your own users. All right, any other?
I was curious, now I really want to see a live demo, like, how does it break if the configuration changes on some piece of functionality you're showing in the tour, you remove that field, what happens?
It skips it. Yeah, because
Does it tell you anything? Because I'd be curious if...
no, so I can actually demo that really quick with the people. So it's really, so if I just go and edit myself, I'm gonna edit myself real quick.
That's so dangerous.
Yeah, I know. It's live demo, people. I might not make it out alive.
You need a tablet?
All right. So here is the tour for iterate user. It's using the same base tour, and I hit next on it. Where am I? I am editing myself. So email address, next, status. Why isn't it asking me for my current login? Oh, because I'm admin 1. Let's go edit the one. Here we go. So there's my current password. So I hit tour, and the next thing it finds is 2 out of 6. Same tour is being loaded up on this page. Add or edit user, same thing. But now I got 1 out of 5 steps instead of 1 out of 6, because the next thing it finds is email address, versus over here the next thing it found was the password credential. But since that div doesn't exist on the other one, it's just like, I don't know, I'm done, and just knocks down the number of things that's going through my line. So yeah, if the UI modified, if the page modified, it would just skip it. But again, if you're adding things, you want to build a new tour or modify your tour. Oh, that's the other thing about Tour UI. You can modify existing ones just by opening it up in the UI. Like, it's very, very easy to add additional steps or modify those steps or rearrange them through the Tour UI. It needs help, it needs love, so if you want to contribute to it, they would love some help. I have not yet contributed to myself, I don't feel like a hypocrite when I say that. But yeah, I'm telling you about it, so there you go. Any other questions? That takes exactly right to 11, so thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your back camp.